Welcome back to a Feel Good Breakfast Show Expresso right here on S3. It is a chilly Thursday, but we are keeping things nice and cozy in studio. And talking about back to this, it's back to school, which means back to a world of learning and adventures. But it also signals the return of potential and welcome guests. And this is what we're talking about this morning, worms in your little one, not fun at all. And today we are gearing up to ensure that your kids are school ready and worm free as they dive into the new term. And this morning, Dr. Mandy Lynn Meyer is here to share her expertise. Dr. Mandy Lynn, good morning and welcome. Thanks for talking about worms nice and early in the morning, but it is essential, right? Because it affects the child. It really does.
It does. And I think it's an often neglected and sort of taboo topic because nobody wants to talk about worms.
Yeah.
Really.
So let's open that can of worms this morning, so to speak. Okay, so we had a lovely holiday. I mean, my boys, they've been outside, given the weather as well, playing and just enjoying the holidays. But we got to ask, I mean, what puts a child at risk for contracting worms? What sort of activities that do they engage in that potentially could lead to it?
Yeah. So I think before we talk about risk factors, we first sort of need to understand a little bit about worms and what are they. So worms are parasites that infect the gut of children, often school-going children. They're actually the commonest infection worldwide. And they often occur in impoverished communities disproportionately because of the lack of access to sanitation and good, clean, safe water. So we get two groups of worms. You get roundworms, which are your whipworms or hookworms. They sound disgusting, but that's what they are. Also threadworms, and then you also get ascariasis in that group. And then you get another group of worms, which is your flatworms, which is your tapeworms and flukes.
Sure. So there's a whole variety.
There's a whole variety of worms, and they all they infect people in different ways. So the roundworms or whipworms, really, essentially, you get from contaminated soil. So human feces or poo gets into the soil. Children then play in the soil, ingest the eggs, and then become infected. In the case of whipworm, they also can infect children in another way, and that is children will play on a surface or ground that is contaminated by feces, or maybe in a body of water which has been contaminated with poo.
Yeah.
And these flukes, these little hookworms have little hooks which will actually go through the skin of a bare foot and then infect the child that way.
Goodness.
So the risk factors for that really would be playing in unsanitary areas which are not hygienic, maybe bodies of water which have been contaminated by feces. And obviously our children during the school holidays are a bit more active, they're exploring, so they might be slightly more at risk at that stage. The other worm that we talked about was the threadworm. So threadworms are these tiny little cotton thread worms which appear, and they affect the intestine of the child, and at night they come out through the intestine and they actually lay eggs on the child's bottom around the anal area, which causes intense itching.
Yeah.
So the children will scratch their bums, and then they get the eggs underneath their nails. It's great breakfast talk. And then they will put their hands to their mouth and they'll reinfect themselves that way. Or they'll touch handles or surfaces, and then those eggs can live outside the body for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And other children will then become infected. So close contact with other children is another risk factor. And obviously all our children having play dates and playing with each other, then they can readily infect each other.
You really unpacked it for us very nicely there. Thank you very much. Because, I mean, you can imagine with so many different variety of worm as well, it affects a child in different ways as well. But I mean, prevention is better than cure at the end of the day, right? So what are some of the things that the parents can do to encourage healthy habits? And maybe it's something that we as parents can also take on board.
Sure. So I think, it's the basics. It's hygienic hand washing. So if you go to the toilet, wash your hands, please. If you're preparing food, wash your hands before you prepare food. If you are handling animals, because the tapeworm is another worm which also is from infected animals, make sure you wash your hands after that. Make sure you have safe water practices. So if your water is not treated, boil the water for a minute before you drink it or use it for human consumption. And then safe food practices. So cooking food thoroughly, meat thoroughly that has been, that you cook it thoroughly, allow it to rest before you eat it. Fish, the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
And in the case of threadworms, keeping the child's nails short.
Yeah.
If there is an infection, treating it as soon as the infection becomes apparent.
Yeah.
And then just good hygiene in the
Good
bathroom.
hygiene in general. I mean, the kids are heading back to school now, and I mean, I can only imagine how it can affect, if you have a worm infestation, a child, and how it affects their ability to go to school and being in an educational environment. Just quickly for the parents out there, should you suspect that your kids have a case of worms, but unsure about seeking medical attention or advice? I mean, what's the go-to here? How do we do this?
So,
do you have to go to a doctor? Can you get a deworming?
Deworming medication is safe, cost-effective, and it's available at most pharmacies. It is, very easy to take. It's oral. It has minimal side effects. So really, if you think your child has a worm infection, rather treat it. It can have academic effects. Worms are parasites living on the intestine, sucking on all the vital nutrients, making the child anemic and pale and struggling to concentrate in class. So rather get your child treated. If they're under a year, or if you've treated them before and they're not responding to treatment, then I would say go seek medical help.
Dr. Mandy-Lynn, thank you very much for being so open and honest in our discussion this morning. Really appreciate it. And of course, we want to have this in our back pockets for sure going into the third term for our kids. Vermoxid is available in a 500 milligram once-off crushable tablet containing mebendazole polymorph C that can be mixed or taken with water for the treatment of worm infestations. It is suitable for children as young as 12 months, easy to administer and suitable for the whole family. So there we have it. You can wave goodbye now to those unwelcome guests and pave the way for a healthy start to the new school term.